Hello, everybody. Thanks for checking out this interview. I had a great conversation with Megan Peitz of Numerious. As you'll find out, Megan and I attended the same college and have some great views exchanged on data analytics, data literacy, and it was great to speak with another data business owner, especially one coming from a liberal arts background. So check out the discussion, and I will see you after that. So I am with Megan Peitz. Megan is the founder of Numerious. She is a fellow Hillsdale College alum. And what I wanted to do with Megan was, as another data analytics professional and business owner, just speak to not just alum of Hillsdale or similar schools, but people interested in data and analytics and how all this works together to be a professional today. So first, for Megan, I really want to thank you for joining me. This is a new thing that I'm trying, an interview like this. So glad to be the inaugural guest here, I guess. And if
Yes,
you
well,
have
thank
any,
you for having me.
yeah, thank you. So any thoughts on how Numerious came to be, and if you want to introduce yourself and how you ended up in the field that you're in?
Sure, absolutely. So uh, it has been a wild ride over the past couple of years, but I graduated from Hillsdale College way back in 2006, and with a concentration in mathematics. And I also actually minored in classics. So shout out to all of my professors in that department and the 8 years of Latin that I've taken that I'm sure gets applied in my mathematic realm these days. But after Hillsdale, I ended up going to Georgetown University to get a master's in mathematics and statistics. And then after that, I happenstance walked into the marketing research field. And so one of the things that I'm really glad you invited me to talk about is just this career path, because not a lot of people know about the field of marketing research. And what it is the ability to help major corporations figure out what they need to do to better sell their products or services. So I've worked over the years for a multitude of types of companies, whether it's what we call consumer packaged good companies. So from people that make chocolate candies to people that make batteries to anything you can imagine, to financial services, to transportation, to airlines, and all of these sorts of things, because these major industries and corporations have questions about, what should we make, what should we build so that people want to use our brand, use our product or service. And then marketing research helps these companies answer those questions. And so one of the firms that I worked with was based in Auburn Hills, Michigan at the time, called Ganges Research. And I was there for almost 8 years and was able to use my math skills because, as you can imagine, in order to help these companies answer these questions, we've got to do research. And a lot of the times that research is quantitative in nature, right? We're collecting data from people, we're building models to figure out what really matters to them, and then we're, sharing predictions or recommendations based on that math. One of the techniques that we use in marketing research, and what I technically specialize in now, is called conjoint analysis. And I got really excited about that methodology because what we do is we show people different products or services, and we actually ask them which of them would they prefer. And, by understanding what people truly value, we can build better products and services. And so that methodology was actually put into a software by a company called Sawtooth Software, which is where I went after my 8 years at Ganges. So I worked at Sawtooth, traveling around the world, teaching people about this super awesome methodology, and just loving that career there. But turns out not everybody wants to buy the software and learn how to do the math. So instead, there were opportunities for me to actually use the software and do the math for other folks. And one of those folks happened to be Google Nest. If you're familiar with smart thermostats, they are kind of the brand leader in that category. They also make a lot of other hardware products like speakers, doorbells, displays, phones, etc. And after we did a conjoint together, They got really excited about the results, what they were able to do with that data, the recommendations that they were able to give to leadership about what to do next in the category. And so they had asked me to come over to Google and basically run all of these conjoints across their whole portfolio. Interestingly enough, I'm born and raised in Michigan. I have a family here. And I actually ended up turning them down. I said, I really liked my job at Sawtooth, and the only way I was ever going to leave was if I started my own business. And I kind of thought that was the end of it, but they turned around a couple hours later and said, okay, start your own business and we'll sign a 2-year contract. And that was how Numerious Inc. was born about 3 years ago. January 2019 was when we kicked that off. And Numerious is a mashup of numerically curious, and we help people find the story in the numbers.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing the origin story there. Now, as far as starting the business, it sounded like that was something that just kind of took on a life of its own. Was it something really conscious that you went after?
Correct. I had always hoped that I would be here someday, but I certainly didn't expect it to happen that soon. So it was a silver platter. Not often do people get approached by Google and Google says, I'll sign a 2-year contract with you. So I kind of couldn't turn it down, right? It was too good to be true. But since then, the business has morphed, and we also have a lot more clients at Numerious, a handful of them in the tech space in particular, but also across all of those verticals that I had kind of mentioned earlier in terms of consumer product goods, luxury vehicles, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's an offer I couldn't turn down either. That's cool. So as far as having a data-oriented business, what and I studied a little Latin too, so salve, but what parts of that have benefited you in going on to running your own business, right? It's not all just math and number crunching that you're doing. There's a lot of other things that's going on behind the scenes, and how has that benefited you to have that other training than in just math to do so?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I attribute a lot of my success to the fact that I feel like I have a really broad education, especially given Hillsdale's approach in liberal arts education, right? We are encouraged in the classroom to have conversations around things. We're encouraged to agree or disagree with each other and, have fluid conversations. And because of that, I feel like I am able to turn very complex methodological conversations into conversations that anybody could have, regardless of how many masters in math and statistics you might have, right? And so being able to see both the business perspective, which I really am grateful for Hillsdale for kind of, I think, ingraining that in me, but then also having the math background to support it, makes me a little bit more of a jack of all trades in terms of being able to have these conversations at this more strategic level, instead of just always talking about, well, this is what the model said, these are the algorithms that I ran. That stuff, isn't really important. Nobody cares how you got there. They care what the model says. And that's what that's where you can be successful, is if you can articulate exactly what this means for the business.
Absolutely. Really well put. I found that having that education myself and being able to communicate all of the technical things. I mean, there are plenty enough people who understand all the technical know-how behind model building and analytics, but if you're able to communicate it well and teach people with it and show them why it matters, then that's really an edge that is hard to beat. So I've really focused on it myself, and it sounds like you've done so the same and are doing quite well at it. So I think a lot of this is pretty surprising to many, at least who I've spoken to, and maybe you have similar stories who hear that you're doing things with data and you're operating a business with that. So What advice would you give to people who went to Hillsdale or another school, or have an education that wasn't really focused on math or STEM or things like that, and have always been a little math phobic? I'm sure that's probably one of the first things you hear when you tell people what you do. Oh, math. So what sort of advice would you give somebody who is maybe interested in this field, and they want to get a little more data fluent? Maybe they want to get even more into data than just kind of understanding the basics. How would that path look for them?
Sure. Well, I'll start with a success story just so that people can know that it is possible to be successful in this field without actually, having studied math or statistics. When I worked at the software company, Sawtooth Software, I believe I was actually the first hire with a degree in mathematics, and they had been around for 20 years. And they're using some of the most, complex algorithms, et cetera. And the president of the company, who is probably one of the smartest people I know, his background is in English. And yes, he has an MBA, but, it's just very interesting to me that a software company, a tech company, could be built on, the success of people who didn't even have math in their toolbox. So if you want to learn something and you put all of your efforts behind it, I do believe it's something that's easy to learn, and you can be successful at it. Where would I start? There, in my field in particular, if you ever go on LinkedIn, follow some of the posts that I write about, I talk specifically about conjoint analysis and max-diff, or what are otherwise known as discrete choice methods, and those techniques. And my former employer, Brian Orm, actually has a lot of books that are available today that you could read, get familiar with the methodologies, etc. There's also a massive library from Springer that has how-tos. So right now I'm looking at my bookshelf, and there's a great book by Chris Chapman and Ellie Feit called R for Marketing Research and Analytics. They also have a Python version as well, which would lead me to, where do you get started in all of this? I'd buy one of those books, and then I'd accompany it with you getting your hands dirty. Get into R if you are into statistical software. Get into Python if you lean a little bit more towards wanting to program and build things, and then see where it takes you from there. There's so much out there to learn that you're going to want to try to taste everything before you really decide, what that main course is that you want to have, perhaps for the rest of your life, in my circumstance. But those are some of the languages that I find are very prevalent amongst the folks that I work with today. And the fact that we have, the internet, we have so much access to courses through Lynda or Coursera and plenty of others that you could get started learning from as well. But please do not think for any second that you have to have this, layer of all of these math skills to even get started. You can really start from scratch as long as you're willing to put in the effort.
Absolutely. And I've read that book too, the Chapman and Feit book. And yeah, that's one reason that I wrote my book too, Advancing into Analytics, is for people who are using spreadsheets and Excel and thinking, well, what do I do next if I want to get more into statistical modeling and I want to learn R, Python, or something like that? How do I do that and make that jump really smoothly? So I'm hoping that resources like that, and it's not just me providing that sort of material. There's a lot of people helping in that. So it's great to see that path coming more clearly. As far as someone who, let's say they do have a more mathematics-based education, or at least they've gotten over their fear of math and working with data, and they're thinking, oh, like, boy, I'd really like to do something like Megan or George are doing, and kind of work on their own using data. What advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, well, I will say the best advice that I've gotten is that you are your own advocate, right? So if you are excited about, what George and I are doing in the field, reach out to us or start following our blogs or start going up to the forums where we post answers to and that sort of thing. And, start learning and contributing and asking questions and that sort of a thing, because without, asking for what you need, the answer is always no, right? So I've had a couple of people approach me in the past from Hillsdale asking, hey, can you meet with me, talk to me about marketing research? I'm curious about this field. Happy to do that. Or, do you have an opening for internships? Sometimes we do. So if those are available, we can have that as well. But I don't normally, openly post about these things. Otherwise, I might be overwhelmed and not have time for real work, but always willing to make time for the Hillsdale alumni and current students. So I extend that invitation through your network, George. But also, if you see a job that you're looking for, go for it, or look at what the job description is and then figure out how are you going to get those skills. You would be surprised, you just have to do really well at interviewing and be really confident and be really self-motivated, a self-learner, a self-starter. And I think you will be more successful than you've imagined. But don't feel like you have to wait until you have, skills A, B, and C in order to get the job. I do think that there is a lot of people looking for data scientists, people with analytical backgrounds, that as long as you're willing to put in the effort, they would be happy to take you on and kind of learn as you grow. Not everybody that gets hired has the perfect skill set to start, no matter where you are in your career path.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it's true. Something like this field, the imposter syndrome is so easy because it is so technical, but at the same time, things are changing so rapidly, and that ability to learn quickly and pick up new tools is really the best skill that you can have, and that's something that you learn kind of inherently as a Hillsdale student, right? You're always taking new classes, trying new different things, and having that ability to just grow and shift wherever you want to go is super valuable. So any other parting words or closing thoughts here?
I don't think so. I know, one thing that my team internally is looking at in terms of like up and coming data science type stuff is we're really interested in STAN, which is a new probabilistic programming language that really works well with this type of models that we like to build. So if anything like that excites you, I'd say in addition to R and Python, take a look at STAN. And from just a general business perspective, like I said, I was given a silver platter. I feel very lucky that I am where I am and that Numerious has taken off and is successful. But that should be a note of, don't be afraid. If you have the confidence and if you're willing to put in the effort, you don't have to necessarily know exactly what you're doing, which is in my case, but you can take it on, you can learn as you go, and you can be committed, and hopefully all of that will turn into success for you. So I wish everybody the best of luck in their endeavor to try to break into this space, and hope that you are successful.
Well said. Thank you again, Megan, for coming on. So this has been Megan Peitz with Numerious, and I'm George Mount, and we've had a great discussion here on all things liberal arts, analytics, and where to go from there. So thanks again, Megan.
You got it. Go Chargers.
All right. Well, I hope you got as much out of that conversation with Megan as I did, and it gave you some new perspectives on where to go next with your analytics journey, give you some encouragement that analytics has a spot for anybody who's interested. It's not just about math, right? It's about telling a bigger story, working with a business, etc. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this, and check out my other videos. Make sure you stop by the blog as well. Okay, thank you. Until next time.